Today in our 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's Direct Connect baseplate. Here at eTrailer, we install, test fit, and review a lot of different products to help answer your questions and ensure proper fit. When flat towing your vehicle behind your motorhome, there's 5 main components you'll need to do so. First is our tow bar, which is our attachment between our motorhome and our vehicle. In addition to your tow bar, you'll need your safety cables, which is a supplemental attachment in addition to your tow bar. You also need your base plate, which is the connection point on our vehicle that our tow bar is going to attach to. You also need your diode wiring, which takes all the lighting signals on your motorhome and transfers them to the lights on your vehicle so people will know your intentions when going down the road. And lastly, your supplemental braking system, which will take all of the brake inputs from your motorhome, send them to your vehicle, which will apply the brake inside your vehicle to help you come to a safe stop. And this is what our base plate looks like when it's installed. It passes right through where your factory tow hooks went through and provides a connection place for all of your electrical connectors as well as your breakaway switch for your braking system. On each side, we're going to have dual connection points. You'll have your safety cable connection as well as your tow bar connection, which is a removable component. The arm here will slide in and twist to lock into place, and your tow bar is going to connect directly to this component here. When you're not using it, just driving around town, you can pull this out, and that way it's going to give you a cleaner look, and you're not going to have anything sticking out. So let's say you park it in your garage and you go to walk by the front, you don't have to worry about hitting your shin on something like this, because you could easily just get it out of the way. We've gone ahead and inserted both arms, and we're going to go ahead and hook up our tow bar so you can see how it attaches to the arm. First, we're going to take our tow bar, we're going to take the shank and slide it into the receiver of our motorhome. Like any other Hitch accessory, we're going to line up the hole in our tow bar with the hole in our receiver. And we're going to secure it with the included pin and clip. Your tow bar is quite heavy, but what's awesome about these tow bars is that once you've got them connected, you really don't ever have to take it out. They're kind of designed to stay right on the back of your motorhome. When you're not using your tow bar, it will lock into place here at the top on the head, and then you can take it off to either the driver or passenger side. And you do want to choose a side. If you just leave it straight up, it will pick a side as you're going down the road. All of your components can then be wrapped up around it, and we also have covers available from Roadmaster here at eTrailer that you can pick up to keep everything nice and neat, protected from the elements, and also ensure nothing's going to fall down and drag the road while you're driving. When you're ready to use your tow bar, we're going to go ahead and lift up on it. The lever here at the top, we're going to push it towards our motorhome. That's going to release it and allow us to set it down. We can then spread our arms apart, and we're going to bring them down and get them ready to line up. We'll need to grab our pins out of the box that our tow bar came in so we can secure it. We can then take our arms, extend them, and lift them up. Our pin's going to go from the outside in through the tow bar and through our base plate connection. We'll line up the holes on the other side, and then we can take the pin that's attached with the little tether, open it up, slide it all the way through, and lock it into place. Now we're going to take our safety cables and hook them up to our motorhome. I've got the passenger side cable here. We want to hook this to the driver's side on our motorhome. We want to do the same thing with this one. And this is going to create a cradle here underneath our tow bar. So in the event of a catastrophic disconnect, these will become taut, and that's going to keep this from falling down into the pavement. It's going to hold it up on our cables here. We can then hook up the rest of our flat tow components, which is typically your braking system, breakaway switch, and diode wiring. And we're ready to put our vehicle into flat tow mode and hit the road. We'll begin our installation underneath the hood by removing some push pin fasteners here so we can get our fascia off. There's 2 located up on top. We're going to use a flat bladed screwdriver or a trim panel tool to go underneath the little lip. There's a small little opening. You can fit your flat bladed screwdriver or a trim panel tool in there. Get underneath the head, and then you can kind of pop it up some. And then once you get that up, the whole pin will pull out of there. If the center just pulls out, kind of like that, it's not a big deal. You can just get underneath the lower piece and it will pry out of there. This piece can then just be reinserted right into the end. We want to keep it kind of just popped up like this though. That'll be easier when we go to reinstall. We can now come into our wheel well. There's 2 rivets we'll need to drill out, and we're just going to use a 3/16 drill bit to drill out the center of the rivet here. Once you drill out the center, the rivet will just pop out like that. We're going to do the same thing with the other one over here, and then we're going to drill out the ones on the other side. If it stays behind, you might need to use a bigger bit or a pair of pliers or your trim panel tool or a screwdriver to just pry it out of there. Just above the rivets, there's also 1 bolt. We're going to remove this as well with a 10mm socket. To help us get this bolt and these rivets out, I went ahead and turned the wheel all the way towards the passenger side since we're on the driver's side here to give us more room. When we go over to the other side to take out the exact same pieces of hardware, we're going to turn the wheel the other way to make it easier on that side. We now need to get our trim pieces removed on each side. We've got all the hardware out, so to get the trim piece removed, you're actually just going to grab it here towards the bottom, and you're just going to pull outward. And we're just going to gently work our way up towards the top here. And we really just need to get it to this point to where it's past the fascia here at the front. You can kind of see the seam. So once you've got it out to that point, what I like to do is to take a rag or paper towel or something, kind of just fold it up until it's nice and thick, and then you can stuff it down in here, and that'll actually help hold our trim piece out for us, which will make it easier when we go to take it off. It just kind of gives us a little gap there, gives us a little more room. We're going to do the same thing over on the other side. We're now underneath the vehicle, and we need to remove the undershield here. There are 3 bolts across the front that we're going to need to take off using our 10mm socket. And then there's a push pin here that we can remove. These are just like the ones up top. Pop out the center, and then you can pull it out. Then if we go towards the rear of our vehicle here at the back of the panel, there are 2 more bolts that we're going to remove. These are the smaller head ones, not the really large ones right next to it. We're going to use our 13mm socket to remove these 2. Then on each side of our shield, our fender liner here is going to be attached to it with a 10mm head bolt. So we're just going to go up in there and take one off on each side. We can then take our panel down now, just kind of pull out a little bit on those fender liners. They kind of wrap around it a little bit. And we're going to pull it towards the rear so we can get the front of it to drop down. And then we can slide it towards the front and set it aside. There's now some twist pins that we'll need to remove all along the bottom. There's 1 on each side where our fender liner attaches, and then there's 3 across the front and the middle. Just turn those and pull them out. The ones in the middle come out the exact same way. We're now ready to start removing our fascia. I like to start here at the front. If you push in on the fascia a little bit and just kind of give a little bit of pressure up, you can get these panels here popped out on top. We just want to get them popped out. We're not going to pull. We just want to just get them kind of loose like that. And then we're going to come over here to the side now. We're going to kind of pull out and down a little bit to get this removed. Just like that. And I only like to get it removed pretty much right up here to about the headlight. And then this is a good point to go a stop and get the other side released to this point. If you've got an extra set of hands, then they can be working this off while you're doing this side. But if you're all by yourself, then this is a good point to go get that other side popped loose. Now that we've got each side popped loose to that point, you can brace it in the center here, and we're going to just kind of pull forward. We're kind of pulling on the bottom a little bit upward to get it to pop loose on our headlight. Well, we got that side popped. We're just going to come over here, just kind of working our way back and forth. And now that we've got both sides released to the point of our headlights, we're going to come here to the center. Make sure we've got these pop loose all the way down. And we're just gently going to bring it forward and then check for any electrical connectors. Now if you have fog lights, you'll need to disconnect your connectors here. There's 2 release tabs. There's 1 on each side of the connector. So this guy can actually be kind of a pain to disconnect. You have to kind of release one side and then release the other side, and then you can pull it out. And you can see the two release tabs on each side there. And you'll also have your fog light on the other side, so you want to do that one. And there's also another wire here on our passenger side. Just follow that wire up. To release this connector, you'll want to release the lock tab, and then you can press it on the release disconnector. Once at our fascia side where it won't get damaged. Now our fascia is off. Behind that on each side, attached to our bumper beam, we're going to have our air deflectors here. There's 3 bolts that hold that on. We're going to remove those with a 10mm socket. We're also going to remove the one on the other side. If we follow our tow hook back, you'll see that it's attached using a large nut on the back side. We're going to remove these large nuts from each side using a 30mm socket. We can then come to the front and remove the 2 bolts that are remaining holding our tow hook on. We're going to use a 16mm socket to remove them. We're going to remove our other tow hook as well. We'll then want to remove our tow hook mounting brackets. There's 2 bolts that hold it on. There's one in the front here, and then there's one kind of towards the middle rear portion right back in there. Same size socket that we used before, the 16mm, to take those off. We'll also be removing the other side. On each side of our core support, we're going to remove the lower bolt with a 13mm socket. We can now take our brackets and set them into position. The top plate here is going to butt up against the bottom of our bumper beam, and the hole here on the outside is going to line up with that hole where we just removed those long bolts from. These holes here on top, they're going to line up with the holes in the bottom of the frame that held our tow hook on, our tow hook mounting bracket. We're going to be using the longer bolts that come in our kit. We slid locking washers and large fender washers on each one of these. We're just going to slide it into position, run our bolts up through the bottom, and start them into the frame. After you got those 2 bolts in, we're going to take our factory bolts that we'd removed previously and get those started. We're going to put this guy back in there. And then the bolt that we had removed from our tow hook that threaded into here just for the one on the outside. We're going to take that factory bolt and we're going to thread that back in as well. Now at this point we can snug it up just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and bring this one up. We don't want to bring this bolt all the way tight yet. We can go ahead and snug these 2 bottom ones up and this one here. The bottom ones we're going to use a 17mm socket. And we're just looking to just kind of get it to touch so we can get it to line up. So now that we've got those guys just kind of run up and snug, we can see that we have a little bit of a gap between our bumper beam there and between our bolt here. And you want to go ahead and get the other side to this point and check the gap on the other side as well. And you can see on the other side here our gap is even worse. To adjust for this, we can loosen up the bolts that hold our bumper beam on, and then it can drop back down and we can just re-snug those bolts back up because they are all slotted. There's 2 bolts here, one through this hole and then one on top. And then on the outside, there's also some nuts here we're going to loosen up. And then there's one here. For the nuts and the bolts, those are all going to be a 13mm socket, and this one's going to be a 10. When we remove this one, we're not going to reinstall the small one after we've adjusted it. So we removed those 10mm bolts, and we're just going to loosen up the rest of these on this side and the other side. Now that we've got these loose, we can go ahead and run these up. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. That took up our gap there, and then we can snug back down all the bolts that we had just taken loose. Now we've got our last hole. Now depending on your vehicle, if you had tow hooks, you're going to use that bolt on the other side, just like we talked about reusing the factory one. If you didn't have factory tow hooks, you're going to be using that hole on the other side as a template, just like this side. We have to drill this one out using a 1/2-inch drill bit. So we're going to go ahead and just slide it right on through there, and right into the bottom of the bumper beam, we're going to drill. Now this side is drilled out. We went ahead and took the spacer that comes in our kit. We just sat it right up on top there. We're going to use the larger diameter bolts. We put a lock washer and a flat washer on it, as well as some Loctite. That's going to go up through our spacer, our base plate, and into our bracket, our bumper beam here, and it's going to thread into a handle nut. If you're planning on doing a full flat toe setup and using your electrical connectors for your 6-way and everything, then I would recommend putting this on. This is going to make it easy to get those things mounted up. If you're not planning on putting any of those things on, you don't have to install this. But I highly recommend it, just because if you ever wanted those things later, it's much easier to install those with this bracket. So we're just going to slide our bolt through the cross bracket and up to the rest of the components we just talked about. And then I'm going to take our handle nut, and this is just going to sit right on top of the bolt that we slid up, and we're just going to thread it right into the bottom of that handle nut. Once we've got it started in there, we can go ahead and just snug this up with a 19mm socket. And we'll repeat the same process over on the other side. We can now torque our hardware to the specifications outlined in our instructions. We'll want to start with the bolts going into the frame first. We can then cut off our handle nuts. This is easily done by taking your side cutters and just grabbing the end of the handle nut, and then if you just twist it kind of while applying pressure on your pliers, it'll cut right through it nice and easy. Then we can reinstall the air deflectors on each side. We're going to hold it up here, lining up the holes with the weld nuts in the bumper beam. And we're just going to get an idea of how much we need to cut out. We can see here it's going to hit our base plate. So I'm just going to mark around this. We're going to trim this out with a pair of snips. And you can also find this outlined in your instructions. We can then go ahead and reinstall the panel once we've got it trimmed out. And then we'll repeat the same process over on the other side. And with all of our hardware tightened and torqued down to its specification, and everything reinstalled here behind the fascia, at this point we can reinstall our fascia in reverse order of how we removed it. But I highly recommend at this point that you hold off on reinstalling your fascia and finish your entire flat toe setup, because you likely have diode wiring and a braking system to install, and a lot of the wiring and components are a lot easier to mount and route while your fascia is removed. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up our flat toe installation here, and then once I get the rest of those components installed, we're going to come back and show you how to get the fascia back on, what we're going to need to trim out, if any trimming is even going to be necessary. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's Direct Connect base plate on our 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee.